Well, hello friends, this here's David Vose. Today is January the 23rd, 2016. It's good to see everybody today. Friends, I have a very important message for everyone today. I'm asking for everybody to watch this video. And after you watch this video, I want you to go back and start from the first of the series if you haven't seen those, and watch those. All of these videos are very important. It's important that you understand what's going on in this world right now. I'm going to try and make some connections for you so that your mind can begin to open up and you can begin to see what's really going on. You all know that religion, a lot of religion teaches that this world's an illusion, and that they've got an ego, and we've got to overcome all this, and we've got to, find this nirvana and stuff like Buddhism teaches. And then we've been talking about how the New Testament says that this world is temporary, and that the unseen world is eternal. Talked about how Jesus said, "My kingdom's no part of this world." We talked about how he said we need to crucify the flesh and follow after the Spirit. All of this is related, friends. This is not our home. Lots of videos that we've talked about this in the past, but in this video, I want to explain a little bit more the connection. It isn't just the physical realm that we live in. It's everything you've been taught, and those who teach you, and all the organizations. We're all experiencing a type of MK Ultra programming. And the thing of it is that we've got to wake up, because time's running out. And there's a big plot that's against us. Remember, the children of Israel went down into Egypt. And what happened? Why did they go down there? Because there was a famine in the land. And in the physical world, when you have a famine, that means there's no bread. See, bread is what sustains us. And Jesus said that he had spiritual bread for us. So this was a spiritual famine. We didn't have enough experience, and we were lacking in knowledge and enlightenment. So our Father in heaven allowed us to go into this realm where we were slaves. We were ruled over by this evil Pharaoh. And he was a hard taskmaster, and he made us start building these four-sided, three-dimensional pyramids. This is this physical reality that we're all building. It's enslaving us. This physical reality that we're building, that we're creating, is the very thing that's enslaving us. Many of you are ignorant. And in your ignorance, you're doing everything you can to preserve this fake reality that you live in. You don't want to wake up because you're being programmed to not wake up. If somebody comes along and tells you that it's just all fake and you need to wake up, you get really indignant. And you don't know why, but you'll do anything you can to try and ignore, plug your ears. You don't want to hear it. You'll accuse them. You'll condemn them. It's like a program that you're playing out, and you don't know where it came from. A lot of you realize that you're hearing all these stories about Area 51, and they got aliens down there, and most of you don't believe it. And I think the reason why is because you're thinking, how in the world could there be people down there that's seen all this and they're not coming out with it? These are human beings. Why wouldn't they tell the world? It can't be everybody lying. Yes, there can. And I'm about to explain to you why. When an alien ship crashed on this planet, and this was this Roswell incident, a lot of you have heard about it, And at that time, Eisenhower found out about it. And he was the president of the United States of America. He said, why didn't he do something? Why are they hiding it from us? Well, friends, you're right. Some human beings have that inclination. They want to do something about it. And they wanted to tell the world. Kennedy wanted to tell the world, but they killed him. Eisenhower went down there and said, I want to know what's going on. I want to know right now. And I'm going to tell the whole world what's going on. And this is going to get exposed. And I'm sick and tired of this. And he sent people down there, and there was some reggle-rousing around, and they sent back word and said, you will not do it. You'll keep quiet about this. We're not going to tell the public. And, even you don't need to know what we're doing down here. And Eisenhower says, I'm the president of the United States. They sent the army down there. The United States Army went down there. We're going in. Blow the whole lid off this situation. Guess what? Eisenhower found out real quick that he wasn't in charge. And they used certain means, and they didn't kill Eisenhower. They threatened him, and he backed down. I don't know exactly what happened, but this is why we don't know, and our government's not telling us, because we're not the ones really ruling or running the show. And you say, but why didn't these people that are down there investigating and doing all this, back engineering, why don't they go around and tell somebody? Well, some of them are told. But most of them don't, and here's the reason why. There's whole bunches of layers of this delusion. The Bible talks about the principalities, powers, dominions, and lordships. Jesus Christ came to this world, into this illusion, took upon himself this delusion, and he overcame it. He woke up. He didn't let it take over and bring him down. See, from the time he was a child, he started, angels came and ministered to him. And he broke free. And when he went and died, he went down into hell, and he conquered these principalities, powers, dominions, and lordships. The problem is, each and every one of us have to wake up. Because it's not real. It's just all a big hologram. But it's not that easy. They have organizations on the earth. You see, remember we were talking about in the last video about how Jehovah's Witnesses, they think they're brought into this organization. They think that they're learning the truth, and they're going to, be righteous and going to get to go to heaven or whatever, go to the paradise. But in reality, it's an MK Ultra program where they're being brainwashed for what? Brainwashed for what? What's the deal here? Why do they have this ministry school? Is it really for the ministry? Or are they learning how to put a nice little... Why is it so important that they wear a suit and tie? See, why is it so important that they learn to speak and give talks? What's so important about organization? Why is it they all have middle management positions in business all around the world? I have firsthand knowledge of all of this that I'm speaking of, friends. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not what they seem to be. When you wake up and you look at it from the proper perspective, you realize that these organizations are an MK Ultra mind controlling program, and there are all kinds of layers. Certain organizations are for certain things, to keep to raise up men who wear a suit and tie and follow instructions and are going to be able to run these corporations that these elite have, where they can rape and pillage us. But they don't want anybody, that'll just go in there and go crazy. They got to have some loyal people that they can trust. So they have these organizations that are for that. Now, there are other higher secret organizations, secret societies that are taught certain things, and they're brainwashed from the time they're little, so that they'll never tell. Some of them see sacrifices and terrible things. But all of this is taken care of in their training. They explain certain things to them, lie, program them so that they never tell. So certain individuals that are in Area 51 that see all this stuff, they're not just people just happen to get a job. Do you realize you can't just go out and get a doctorate? You can't just say, oh, hey, I'm Joe Blow, and I'd like to go in and get my, master's degree or PhD or something like that. Do you realize you got to fill out an application, and you're not going to get in unless, one, you're one of the few that they allow in to this higher secret knowledge, or sometimes they bring up a patron puppet for certain reasons. But the average person, just on his grades alone, is not just going to, in his hard work, is not going to be able to move up through the lines and get a PhD. See, those higher degrees are apportioned out to certain individuals, and they really mean nothing. Anyone who has a PhD has not really gotten any knowledge. They're just simply badges of honor. It's the same thing with government. Nobody who goes into government and goes up the line and becomes senator or congressman or anything else, none of them get there unless they've already gone up through the ladder. You've got to go through one of these organizations. Now, you may have been brought up as a Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon or a Seventh-day Adventist or, Now, Jehovah's Witnesses specifically don't go into politics. They're raised and programmed specifically for business. Loyal, very loyal, do whatever we say. Very, very good at taking people under their wing and cultivating an atmosphere in their organization and in these companies to make money. But other organizations are specifically there for, other things like top secret positions in government. So they're taught never to tell. This is why nobody ever really speaks out. Ever so often you'll find out that somebody will come forward and say what they know, and there are certain people that are starting to wake up. But they don't get very far, because everything in our world is designed to keep us down and deceived. So I was about 9 years old when I was on the front porch, and we lived in California at that time, in Forest Hill, California. It's a little small town in the mountains above Auburn, sort of the foothills up north of Sacramento. And if you go way up across the Feather River and the American River, and you go up this canyon and you go up in the mountains and it's kind of towards Tahoe, you'll find a little town called Forest Hill. And it's, in those days, it was pretty secluded. We weren't near any big cities or anything. And where we lived was out in the mountains, out in the forest. And we had a 150-acre ranch that we rented. We weren't wealthy. And I was born into this MK Ultra program, and I didn't know it. So I'm 9 years old, and my brothers are already pretty much grown, in their late teens. They got cars. Two of them are married. One of them's out with his friends all the time. So I'm there alone. My sister's 6 years younger than me, so she was about 3 years old. So we didn't have a lot of conversations. So I was out playing with my cars and trucks and exploring the hills and walking the trails and so forth, and spent a lot of time alone. At that time, I did a lot of thinking. Even though I was only 9 years old, I did some thinking. And sometimes I would just sit there, and as I was alone, because I was alone so much, I would just sit there, and all of a sudden, silence would overtake me. And in moments like that, I would have these powerful visions. Now, this is one of the reasons why most of you don't have this in your life. Because you see, you've got to be quiet to have these visions, to have contact with spirit, with reality. See, when you're in the physical world, you get wrapped up in it. Just the same reason why some of these people in these organizations believe it's this. This is how MK Ultra mind programming works. You're bombarded with all kinds of false information until you believe it. The only way to get free of it is to quiet the mind and let the truth come in, like light coming into a barn door. And it just starts to, you open the barn door and the light crack comes through, and it just starts to let the light into the room, and all of a sudden you start noticing there's things in that barn. And you didn't notice it was there because you were in the dark. And this is what happens when you get out by yourself and you meditate. Well, it started to happen to me simply because I was out there all alone for hours and hours all the time. One particular day I was on the porch. I was 9 years old and I was riding my little tricycle, and all of a sudden, in my boredom, I stopped and just sort of sat there and stared at space for a minute. And my thoughts kind of went into this place. All of a sudden, this voice came to me and it said, "You are not from this world, and this is not your family." And I never forgot that, but I didn't really understand what was going on at the time. So, then we moved to Wyoming. My father and my mother moved around, and all of us family moved around all the time. We were always going one place or another. We never stayed more than about a year or two in any place. And sometimes we'd just be there a few months and we'd be gone. I never got to go to first grade very much, so I had to go and repeat first grade. And it got so bad that by the time I was in sixth grade, I didn't go to school anymore. So I never went to high school, and I never got any high school education. But I was self-taught, so, I know lots of stuff that most people don't know that been to high school, because I've just taught myself. But we moved to Wyoming, and my father got a job as a logger cutting trees. And I remember one day we were coming home after this meeting, starting to get dark, and it was snowing. It was coming down pretty good. It was about a foot of snow on the ground. So there weren't any footprints or anything, because it was all fresh and it was just perfect, pristine snow everywhere all over the ground. As we get closer to the farmhouse where we lived out there, this house had this like a big bay windows, and Mom had these like see-through curtains that would kind of drape on the sides of the windows, and so the center of the window was pretty much open. I think there might have been a real see-through curtain there too, but you could see in as you're coming down the road. As we were coming along, we see that the house, there's somebody in there. You can see him walking past the window, and the lights were on. We didn't leave the lights on. So Mom and Dad were saying, I wonder who's in their house, So we pulled into the driveway. It was kind of a long driveway, and you had to go down and around. Pulled around the other side of the house, and we got to the other side of the house, and the lights were out. So Dad said, everybody stay in the car, and he went opened the trunk and got the crowbar, and he went in the house. He was gone for a while, and we didn't know what was going on. Finally he came back out, and he says, well, I don't know what's going on, because there's no light on. There's nobody in the house. I checked the basement, every cranny, nook, and hole in this house, and there's nobody in that house. And there's no footprints around the outside of the house where the guy jumped out a window or went out the door or anywhere. So it was a big mystery, and we never did know what was going on. But as a young man, I got familiar with these certain moments where I would be sitting there just playing by myself and kind of going into this reverie, this kind of going into this sort of state of mind where I would get these impressions and messages. So a few days later, I'm sitting there in that house, 10 years old. This is about a year after we moved up from California. And I got one of those moments where this vision came over me, and this voice said, your father's in trouble. He's in the hospital. And he's been hit in the head. Well, I didn't say anything, I was like, I just kind of stared into space, and a little while later the phone rang, and sure enough, my dad was at the hospital. He almost died. It was sort of like a miracle, really, that he didn't die, because this huge tree hit him in the head, but the only reason it didn't drill him all the way into the ground is because it had a big branch, and it's kind of stopped it so it didn't go all the way to the ground. Just hit him in the head and knocked him off to the side. Had a whole bunch of stitches, cracked his head open. quite a few things happened there at that place, and had these experiences. I had this feeling that there was a presence there at that house when I was about 10 years old, and they would talk to me from time to time. So there was a lot of these experiences that I had as a child, where these things would come over me, and these moments of quiet and vision. And I just sort of took note of these things and filed it away in my mind. As I grew up, a lot of these things would occur that later on I would be able to look back and realize that I'd been had this presence with me since I was young. Later they've told me that they were with me since I was born. But in more and more coming and trying to open my mind and reveal these things to me as I went. I was about 15 years old, and I ended up, mom and dad got a divorce, and I was on my own. So I had no high school education, and I'm on my own at 15, and I'm working at restaurants, cooking and flipping burgers and stuff like that. Just kind of exploring things, and I would quit my job and they'd go here and, climb some mountains, and did a lot of thinking and a lot of meditation. And around the time I got to be about 18 years old, I was in California, and I was at this place. It's a flea market there in Roseville, California. It's one of the largest flea markets in California. But I remember I was walking, just looking around, all stuff there, and all of a sudden one of these moments came to me again. This sort of presence. And a voice came to me, and they said, "David, all of this stuff that you've been living, it's a lie. Everything you're being told is not true. And it's time that you wake up." And from that moment on, it was finished. I knew that this wasn't my world, this isn't my home, these weren't my people, this isn't my family, and that I had been contacted since I was very young, and they were guiding and leading me, and that there was a purpose for all of this. So, wasn't long after that, I moved back to Idaho. Yeah, I moved around a lot. But basically, since I, working as a cook in a restaurant, I'd quit my job and move on to another town, and I'd get a job there, and I would just did a lot of exploring and investigation and meditation. So I'm up there in Idaho, and this is where this event occurred that I talked about in one of my other videos, where I experienced this contact, this full-blown, all-out contact. And at that point, they began to really explain to me what was going on. And this is why I'm making these videos, because I'm going to explain to everyone here what's really going on. We've got to wake up. These organizations that we're involved in are brainwashing us. Everything that you think is true is just some kind of ploy, and it's not true. So you see why it's so important that you understand that we must receive the Holy Spirit, because this is how you wake up. It's knowledge. This is why if they keep you in the dark about the angels, and they keep you afraid, and make it so that in your religion you're not allowed to talk to angels, you're not allowed to communicate, you're not allowed to get quiet and go into a trance where they can actually talk to you. You see, they want to talk to you. Our Father in heaven is trying to find people. Remember what Isaiah said, "Lord, send me, send me." Is that your attitude? Do you want to be sent? Do you want to know the truth? Our Father in heaven wants to tell you the truth, but you're way down there in this deep, dark hole, and you can't see our Father in heaven. He's light, and you're in the darkness. And the only way to get out is when He reaches His hand down there, you've got to grab onto it so He can pull you out. He'll send down His angels, but if you say, "Hey, I'm not allowed to talk to angels," you might be the devil, and He can't get you out of there, because you're listening to the devil right now when you believe that. If you believe it's wrong to talk to the angels, then it's probably the devil who's telling you that. You're never going to get out of this dark tunnel You're never going to get out of this MK Ultra program because you believe the lies. And you'll defend these lies and all the inconsistencies because you don't want to know the truth, because you love all the little perks that Satan is giving you. Well, we'll give you, we won't let you talk to your family if you tell anybody. See, you took an oath. We'll kill you. It puts fear in you. And you don't realize is they can't do that. All you have to do is call upon the name of our Father in heaven and His Son Jesus Christ. And those demons have got to flee. You don't have to be afraid. But you've got to not listen to them. You've got to listen to the angels of our Father in heaven, El Elyon, the Most High. You've got to reject these laws that are keeping you bound. This is what's on your heart. This most holy, which is that spiritual realm where our Father is and wants to bring you in. But you're wrapped up in the outer world, into the carnal mess that you're in. And you're being mesmerized and you can't hear our Father in heaven. That's why you got to go out into a lonely place. This is why you have to meditate. This is why sometimes you have to stare into a dark mirror. That you've been taught this is all evil and sorcery and witchcraft, and you shouldn't get involved in it. So you're never going to find the truth. Because on a daily basis, you're going to be brought into the church, and you're going to sit down, and you're going to get your propaganda, and you're going to be given all this mind control. So how are you ever going to learn? How are you ever going to get out of this? You keep going to the church, the very church that they feed you all these lies. You keep going to the television, the very place where they feed you all this propaganda. Now, I know it's hard to get out of the world, but if you never get out of the world, if you never go out into a place where there's daisies and daffodils and sunshine on your shoulders, a place of quiet and peace, if you never get out, you'll never get out of this physical world. You'll never wake up. If you're in New York City and you're wandering around in the dark, damp city, running from people trying to mug you, and you're on drugs, and you're trying to make a deal to stay alive, to buy some more baby milk for the babies, trying to figure out how you can make a little bit of extra money selling drugs to make more money to get milk for the baby, you don't know that all your problems is just a big illusion. You need to stop right now and walk away. It's our Father in heaven speaking to you right now. He's whispering into your ear and he's saying, it's all a big illusion. You're not in prison. These prison walls around you are created by your own ignorance. Here's the key to everlasting life. Simply get out of this world. Go find a lonely place where you can pray. And the angels will come to you. And our Father in heaven will send His Holy Spirit. And this conscious world, like a barn door that's been opened, will receive that light. At first, just a little glimmer, until finally that barn door opens, and now whole barn's full of light, and you'll be able to see what you've been missing. So, this is why this information is so important. This is why it's so important. And I'm asking all of you to please consider what I'm saying. And don't be afraid. There's no fear in love. As long as you love, you're saved. As long as you have faith, you're in the place you should be. Don't be afraid. Please, don't be afraid. Satan is darkness. Jehovah only wants to enslave you with all these laws and scare you and tell you you're no good, and you were no good from the time you were born. You're a sinner. And you're not worth anything. You're worthless. And he puts all these accusations on your heart in the most holy. Jesus came to remove that guilt from your heart, to set you free. And if the Son of Man sets you free, you're free indeed. Friends, we're free. And it's time that we let ourselves be free. We open up our ears and open up our heart, and we start listening to our Father in heaven. So that's all I have to say today, friends. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll take it up here again tomorrow. You guys, we'll see you tomorrow.